Welcome to Testing Experts with Opinions, an inspired testing podcast aimed at creating conversations about trends, tools, and technology in the software testing space.
Welcome again. Thanks for joining us. I think this is now the third podcast we've had to dedicate to discussing a QA's role in Scrum. We never anticipated it would take this long, but like someone said before we started the call, it's good to have an opinion. So that's definitely what we've managed to get out of this. So I think today we need to finish the last sort of three swim lanes or sections. So sprint, demo, and retros, deploying the completed work, and then basically ending the project or moving to the next sprint. Um, I don't know, Stefan, do you want to kick off with that first one, the sprint, demos, and retros?
Yeah, sure, Leon. Thanks. Yeah, I think this is obviously at the end of the sprint where you need to show the work that's been completed or all the user stories that's been completed. And the very first one is to participate in the demo of those stories to stakeholders. I think a lot of the times the team expects the testers to demo the piece of work, and since it would make sense for them to know it by heart since they would have tested it. But I mean, this could be the BAs, it could even be developers, it could be many different people within the team. But from what I've seen many times, it's been usually the testers or the analysts that they ask to demo that. So not sure what your experiences are. Who typically does those demos to the stakeholders at the end of the sprint, or who you think it should be?
I just want to touch on what you said. I found it quite funny. Like the testers need to demo it because they should know the product quite well. Well, I would hope the developers would know it quite well as well, having developed it. I think in my experience, it does often fall on the testers, but then again, you'll get companies and teams where there is no tester, and where there is maybe a mix of different skills, but everyone takes responsibility for quality. So I think something that I've seen work well in the past as well is actually just rotating. So every person gets a chance to lead the demo. It's not necessarily always the same person, and I think that's good for other reasons as well. It gives people exposure to those sorts of things. I mean, everything around presentation skills and being able to talk in front of other people and putting something together in terms of a demo that actually makes sense. It's all good experience. So I'll always encourage rotating it through the whole team, because then it does also feel like people take more collective ownership and responsibility for what was delivered in that sprint. But I don't know whether the other two have different opinions.
No, I agree with that. I've had interesting conversations the last month or so around that definition of stakeholder at that stage. Right now, a lot of people argue that if I demo to my product owner, that means it's engineering done. I can now go on with my life. Yet at that stage, it's not necessarily the right audience to critically look at that. So I'll be interested to hear what Stefan or Steve thinks about that word stakeholders and who typically that would be. Because it sounds like a stupid question, but it's anything from my tech lead to the product owner to the program manager to the business director, all the user group. And the definition of that word stakeholder becomes extremely important when we look at the definition of engineering done within that sprint. I mean, there's a bit of debate going on around that, so I'll be interested to hear your thoughts.
So I've had a pretty mixed experience. I've had testers doing demos, devs doing demos. I've also had something which you guys didn't bring up, which was especially within when demos were consistent. So the testers would demo the fix of a critical defect that the team is aware of to show that it's not working or how that fix is implemented. But to answer your point of the stakeholder side, when I've had third-party developers and internal QAs, the stakeholders have been business. So our internal product owner would then review that demo, make sure they were happy. But I've also seen it go to like an exec level, so it'll come out of the team out of the squad and up and into like a tech lead or into a program lead if it's like a big program of work, and they would be part of the like a demo of demos where there'd be a number of projects put in front of them at different points. I didn't really see the value in those bigger demos, maybe just because how they were implemented, because they were very short. Because he's maybe been demoed 10 different things, so each product's only maybe getting 5 or 10 minutes in front of him. So I don't know how much feedback he's really getting from that, other than, oh look, I've got something that's finished that's going to meet my deadlines. I think that's kind of more of a tick box than any kind of really useful feedback.
Is that demo, does it include your definition of demo to stakeholders? Can you assume then if I've demoed it, it was tested by those stakeholders? Because that's another thing people talk about is, yes, I did demo to you, so surely it's fine. So can you see that demo as also that person I've demoed to is now happy with the work that I've did?
Interesting. I think normally, like an internal demo, the team has tested it. And when I mean internal, I mean like as a product owner or a project manager. But I've also seen it when it's gone to business users that weren't necessarily involved in the UAT, weren't involved in any testing. It's the first time they've seen it. And then them being, are you happy with what you're seeing? I can't remember the exact reason why they were involved in UAT. I don't think they were identified at the time. But yeah, again, I don't know how useful that is to someone to here is the thing that you could have had feedback on earlier, but it's now completely finished. So if you've got any feedback, please park it because we can't do anything for the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Exactly.
So I don't know how useful that is.
Interesting.
So just back to your point, Jan, from earlier. So the feeling is that there's a single representative in the form of a product owner or a business analyst. That person works with the business to understand the requirements, scopes the requirements, obviously, etc. That then gets implemented as part of a sprint or sprints. At the end of that that sprint, that whatever was implemented gets demoed to that person, to the product owner or the business analyst. And in a traditional case, maybe that's then considered signed off. But what you're saying is you can't really sign it off at that point, not necessarily, because UAT still needs to happen. And only once UAT has happened is the actual a requirement implemented the way that it was supposed to. Is that the point?
Well, that's the question, really. I often see that people say demo equals sign off. And I think the point I'm trying to make and get across is that it's not necessary, it shouldn't really be the case. Like, as you just said, there are testing activities. And if you want stakeholders to test, that's different than I've demoed to you and you felt that you're okay with it. And I see a lot of people confusing the two. So it's really a question more than a point.
Yeah, but in my opinion, I'm just trying to think whether I'm going to generalize too much here, but probably per sprint, what's delivered per sprint is not necessarily going to deem the necessity or the need for UAT. Maybe it's several sprints that actually contributes to a UAT cycle, where it's now worth getting someone from the business or multiple UAT users to test that. So I've always seen the sprints and the sprint demos almost just ensuring that you've delivered the right thing in terms of this sliver. And then once you've had several sprints and there's actually something, let's say from an end-to-end perspective, or maybe something really visual to test, then you get the UAT users to do it. I think if you do that, the demos start acting almost as this is good enough for this sprint. This is good enough for this sprint. Not good enough, but we've delivered what we set out to do. And then once you get UAT done, you then take all of those UAT. I don't want to say defects because they may not be defects, but that almost goes back into the backlog then. And we always talk about having iterative development and iterative releasing, etc. So maybe what you initially had and developed and demoed, that goes into production, and then you decide, well, I guess you decide whether it goes into production based on how happy the UAT users are, but that can always go back onto the backlog and then get reworked. Because I was just thinking the flip side, if you had to get UAT users to test after every sprint, you might just never sign off. And now, whilst you start working on the next sprint, they're still testing, and then you're mid-sprint in the next one, and now you get all of this feedback from the UAT users, and there's a whole coordination and organization piece around that to make sure that they have the environment and which environments are they going to test on, etc. So, yeah, I guess it's not as easy as it should be.
No, many times in a sprint, the stories that are activities that are being devved are components, not necessarily even a UIs, maybe APIs, and that's not something that's ever going to be faced, or the end users are never going to face that API. They'll always work via UI. So I think it makes it, the UAT is definitely not per sprint. And from what I've seen, you need to sort of say, okay, this is a milestone where there's a bit of an end-to-end, maybe not full end-to-end, but partially, and maybe it's part of a release one as part of your bigger project, then yes, there should be UAT. But I think it's always good to get I almost want to say more people into a demo than less, because everybody brings the angle, everybody brings an interesting question to it. Product owner, always yes in my eyes, but somebody from the business that's practically going to use that, they always ask interesting questions, bringing production incidents or things that happen to them into the mix that might not be specified in the business requirements. So I would almost want to say, well, you might not agree, but I would rather say invite more people to the demo than less, because the sooner they can bring a different angle or an interesting question to the mix, it might impact the way that you dev or change a story. So yeah.
I don't disagree with that, but I want to go back to Steve's points, right? Steve's point there is that's too late, right? If they ask you a lot of questions there, you've done something wrong in your quality process. It is too late, and it happens. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. It's not a good idea, but if you find that a lot of questions come out, you should relook your quality process and move that testing mindset, let's say, way left, to get those questions asked before a sprint starts and not when at demo time. So if you can talk people through that same audience through, this is how we see it working, this is how we see it looking, and they can ask those questions there, then you would have shifted left where you should have been. But I agree, more people are better. I'm just trying to get to Steve's point where doing it earlier is better than doing it end of sprint.
Yeah.
Well, what I've also seen working is actually getting them involved throughout the sprint. And what I mean by that is, if there's a feature that I need to test, or there's whatever you're having to test, as soon as you consider that thing to be signed off in your head, in your mind, you get the product owner to come quickly see, okay, I've just tested this is how it works, etc. Do you agree that this is what was intended? Because you still have that opportunity at that point to say, well, actually, we need to fix this, we need to change this. Whereas I agree, at the end of the sprint, it's too late. Not too late, but you've wasted potential time where it could have been resolved much earlier, and you're not necessarily giving exposure to the business in terms of, well, this is actually not exactly what we anticipated or expected. So I think that, what's the word? Continuous feedback loop almost, in terms of testing as well, back into the product owner, back into the business analyst, whilst you're testing in the sprint, is also something which is a good habit to have, because it can potentially save you from that situation where you're sitting in that demo and then, oh, well, actually, this isn't exactly what we thought.
Yeah, exactly. I want to make a comment, and we don't have to spend an hour on it because that's a topic for a different day. But when we talk shifting quality left, that's it, right? That is where that starts. Shifting quality left is not necessarily I need to now go closer to developers to write unit tests for them. Yeah, sure. Maybe we can argue that that's one part of it. But a big part of shifting quality left and a tester moving quality to the left of the cycle are these things that you're talking about now. getting involved, getting testers to ask the questions, getting testers to elicit those questions from business and solve those things. There where we said 3 amigos, maybe it should be 10 amigos, right? But having those discussions there is shifting quality left, not necessarily only getting closer to the code. I agree with that.
I'm going to try and link Leon's point and Johan's last point there, and why demos sometimes don't work. It goes back to the trying to do too much in a sprint. So they're trying to get there's way too much on the board. There's too much development going on. Some of it is at different levels of test maturity, but they demo it anyway. And then users aren't available, business stakeholders and full calendars, or whatever that is. So that's I think part of the reason why that happens. And how you can, like, an example where we can shift if left even on that is to challenge the team. This is back to earlier in the diagram of we've brought in 100 items here, guys. Do we think that's too much? I know we're a month in, we're hitting around 80 to 100 every time, but do we think that's too much based upon the fact that our last 4 demos we haven't been able to kind of really get on everybody that we wanted and getting the feedback that we really needed? And maybe that ties in neatly to the next topic in the chart, which was lessons learned in the sprint, which aren't necessarily always testing. Even though we're looking at it from a testing perspective, that's not really a testing problem. That's a backlog refinement and grooming problem that's created a quality problem at the back end.
Agree.
So if we're happy to move on to that second point, which is identifying the lessons learned during a sprint. So what are your feelings around including a BA or product owner into those lessons learned sessions? Because in my opinion, they're very much part of that sprint team. Even though they're not technically sitting right in that sprint team, they can also contribute to some of the initiatives and they can have suggestions in terms of improvement. But equally, we may say, as an example, sitting in that lesson learned session, well, actually, we need you to be more available during the sprint so we can demo these changes back to you, or whatever that may be. But is that generally accepted that that person or people are part of that? Because what I've seen typically they aren't. It's very much let's call it developers and testers, although it's one Scrum team. But it feels to me like, again, that's it's a nice low-hanging fruit where if that person is part of that session, it could be more fruitful.
Yeah, totally agree with that. We often just do it as a Scrum team, and that's general practice. But as you said, involving the people who are actually using the product and ask for things is invaluable, because there often lies your quality problem. Again, as we said, right? So it's good. And I've had many conversations with tech leads, and they say everything is fine, quality is fantastic. You speak to the business owner, and they say, well, that's a nightmare because we don't do this, we don't do that, we don't do that. But because these two aren't talking in that session, you're missing that. You're never going to fix that. So I agree with that.
I think it's really worth defining as well, like what we've put there in reference to testing, and I don't think that necessarily just means how well we design that test case, right, or something like that. It could be much more nuanced than that. I think maybe why business BAs and non-technical people sometimes don't participate because they feel they're not technically minded enough to contribute. And it could be something as simple as, when we're doing 3 amigos, can we just make sure the sessions don't run more than 30 minutes? Because we're overrunning all the time. We're not really getting to a conclusion. We just keep going on and running in circles. Or can we move retrospectives to a certain part of the day to get the most out of it? Because even that's valuable for testing, because it's just encouraging people to participate in it and be valuable and contribute. I think a big part of it is trying to get people to contribute into these lessons learned, and it's not just an echo chamber of 2 QAs and one of the devs just going back and forth with each other about 1 or 2 testing issues that the whole squad's aware of, and trying to get the whole team involved and looking at it a bit more holistically.
Yeah.
So this conversation is actually around the QA activities in a Scrum, right? In Scrum, in a typical sprint. But if we do talk about a tester or whoever is responsible for testing, what would you say their role is? Role the right word? What should the activities be in that retro? So when you have your retro, or you have your review of your sprint, what role should the person play that has that testing hat on? Does that make sense?
I understand your question. I think the answer is also a topic, a separate
Or
topic.
for a different day.
But I hear your question, so maybe we can just answer the question there, rather than going into the nuances of testing and tester and things like that.
Yes.
But yeah.
Yes, please.
I think if you go into the mechanical nuts and bolts of it, it's the creation of test cases, the generation of defect reports, the estimation of how much testing effort is going to be required for a given story, running a UAT session with a user, those kind of practical elements. I think that's what you're alluding to, right? Are you thinking more of a nuanced perspective than that?
No, I'm thinking more, and I don't want to state it, but I think owning your space within that retro. So, i.e., standing up for testing, and even if there's 4 developers or 5 developers, and you're the only person in that team, you have to have almost the loudest voice there. If you don't feel people are contributing from a testing or from a quality perspective. So really having confidence and having a central voice in that session. At the end of the day, when you're looking at what's gone wrong in a sprint, and it's obviously not only about what's gone wrong, but if you do look at what's gone wrong, it's probably always, or we haven't delivered this as expected, or we haven't, there was this defect that still got through, etc. So a lot of it is talking to quality, and again, quality being the responsibility of the whole team. I just feel that whoever's owning that testing hat, if it's not a mature environment where everyone is really taking responsibility for quality and everyone's playing an equal part in testing, I just think it's very important for that person to be confident and have a loud voice in that session. Almost fight to some degree to always mature quality more, and show the things that didn't work from a quality perspective. The other thing is to be honest, because I've sat in retro meetings before where everyone in the team knows exactly what's gone wrong, but everyone's too afraid to say what it is. And that might be a test and a developer that clashed and they couldn't agree about something, or 2 developers that, I don't know, both wanted to work on the same thing, and at the end of the day it got delayed by 2 days, or whatever that may be. Just be really honest with each other, because why is the retro there? It's for us to improve as a team. So if we're not addressing the real issues, which are contributing to us not delivering or delivering on time, then why have it?
Yeah.
And it's not about egos, it's not about personalities, it's about improvement as a whole. So I think that's important as well.
Yeah.
You don't really be a box ticking exercise, right? I'm just following the Scrum guide methodically, and it says to do a retro, so I'll just tick that box. We've done that.
Yeah.
Exactly. I've got that 30-minute call on the calendar. I've done that. Let's move on with our lives. Yeah, it's really important to have those difficult discussions if you need to.
Mm-hmm.
But I've also seen a lot of times, like you say, Steve, it becomes a bit of a tick box, and you have this amazing session. People are honest, and the Scrum Master just puts it somewhere in a random link or page on Confluence, and it gets parked. And Monday morning, you rush into the new sprint, and everybody's completely forgotten about those great recommendations. It's almost like I sometimes want to say, create a user story for that recommendation and let it be there almost in your stand-up every morning, so you think about it. Otherwise, you're just going to come to the end of the sprint and the same issues will repeat itself. So I think there's a big, I guess it's the responsibility of everybody, but I think mostly it's almost like the Scrum Master needs to constantly remind the people of what we all agreed on should be the improvements. But I guess everybody should take that ownership. But I've seen a lot of the times those things just get parked, and if people pick up that things never change, that's when people don't start people start declining retros, or they just start not not
What-
caring anymore.
What I've seen as good practice would be, let's say we're in sprint 2, there would be an epic or feature on the board that would be improvements from sprint 1, and then they would be broken out into user stories, and they would actually have to be actioned items that we would track as part of our work in progress, and having accountability for someone to do that. Instead of, like you said, it just gets parked on a Confluence page somewhere. There's 7 things we think we should do, and nobody takes ownership of that. No one's checking the accountability of that, like you would with any other work item.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I mean, imagine the frustration if you sitting in a session for an hour or how long ever a retro is, you putting it out there in terms of what you feel isn't working, and then nothing gets done about it. Especially if you're somewhere or you're someone who's trying to really mature quality. So it absolutely has to be a focus for not just that following sprint, but I always feel that a good Scrum Master would make sure that those things are always front in mind, always reminding the team what did we discuss in the retro, what did we agree to that we were going to improve on, and when he or she sees that it's happening again, just bring it up again. But it's very difficult for one person to always play the policeman. So I think it is about, I mean, it comes down to the fact that it is a team, right? And a team works for each other. So if you as a team agree that this is something that we want to improve on, then you need to hold each other accountable. And if you see that we're not doing that anymore, whatever, then every person should be doing what they can to improve and holding each other accountable and raising it if it's not working. Okay, shall we move to the next one? Deploying completed work.
Assist with handover and training for team where relevant. Yeah, so I think this one is important at certain stages when you're actually going to be doing a release and going to production. Just always being top of mind that we also, especially as quality everybody's responsible for quality, but as quality custodians, always ask the questions: have the handover documents been written? Has the training been completed? And I think there's a big role for us as quality engineers also to help make sure that the business is comfortable, or whether it be the ops team or the business users, that they are comfortable and ready and aware of the changes that are coming. So I don't know if it's in every team that they expect people from, or the testers, to participate in training or handover, but I think it's definitely a role we can play as testers in a team. Have you guys seen testers often helping with training and handover to business and ops?
I've seen testers suggest having it in the first place, as there wasn't going to have a handover or a training documentation. So we kind of flagged it as it's an OAT task, so an operational acceptance test task, to have some documentation to make sure we can kind of use the system. And another thing I've had, which was I think really useful, was one of my testers used to keep a tally of every time he asked the same question about something within the system, let's say the UI. Or it's weird that when I upload this file that I get this dialog box. It's just a bit, I don't understand it. And he had to get it explained a few times to the developer. And he said it would be worthwhile if you put an FAQ in the user guide to address some of these questions that I kept bumping into, because I imagine when it's rolled out to the business, those same kind of things will happen. No, don't worry, that's a bit of a idiosyncrasy of the design. It's going to give you this this pop-up. Don't worry about it. This is what the pop-up means, to give you some context. I think the testers can help with making that effective, testing that guide and that material to make sure that material is fit for purpose, like we would anything else.
Especially if, I think when we are usually pretty close to UAT as well, helping the business doing UAT, and you also see the kind of things that they ask, bringing that into the training material, because sometimes you have a dedicated team that builds training material, but just say, have you put this specific detail in there, because that's a question they all came to me and asked me while I was helping them with UAT, for example. So I think there is a glue factor that a tester can definitely play between the training content and the business.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's not the testing person creating training content and doing training, right? And I think that's important. I've seen that. I've done that. I had to do it, but that kind of frustrated me quite a bit because now you say, oh, but you are the super user, you know the most. You might as well go and write the training material and then train business on it. I'm not a big fan of that. Don't like documentation as it is. The other thing that I've seen post deployment are testers, because they are super users, getting involved in the incident process, which I don't necessarily mind. I do think that it's a good second line support function really for a test, because you do know the system quite well, not on a technical level necessarily, but as in a functional level. And getting involved in that, I've seen testers do as well, which I'm not against.
Yeah, I was just going to say that exact thing, that the better your training or your handover is into the ops team, the less they're going to come to you for second line support, because that typically does happen. If you're, I guess, yeah, if that handover between your team and the ops team who need to support this in production, if that's not good, then you're going to constantly get sidetracked with production issues when you're trying to deliver a sprint. And now that's just got a knock-on effect, because if you're having to support 3, 4, 5 different things or incidents, or potentially they don't know how to support the system, then you're not going to deliver on what you took into the sprint. So I think that's a very important step, actually, that handover. It doesn't have to be necessarily a handover, but however you get that information transfer or that knowledge transfer from your team to whoever's going to support the system, I think that's a valuable step. Otherwise, it just has a lot of knock-on effects.
It can be useful for like which I think we could do use example where, let's say we've had like performance issues, but we've not phrased it as a defect because let's say the requirements are quite ambiguous. But as a tester, I'm just like, I'm a bit uneasy about the performance of this system and what it's going to look like in live. This is a good opportunity for you to say to the support desk, there are no performance defects, but I've just got concerns due to the nature of the design and what I've seen during UAT in high traffic instances that we may see performance issues. So just keep an eye on that. Just like have a look at it if it's starting to come through on your service test tickets and your support tickets. And it's something it gives me more evidence as a tester to come back into the team and go, look, there's something that I thought might have been a problem, but I just couldn't get the evidence for you at the time, or we didn't have the requirements to test against. I've got evidence from the business that the performance is a problem and we need to address it. And that's a good opportunity in this period to have those kind of conversations up front. But obviously not leading the horse to water, not getting into look for a problem that you think's there when it's not there. It's more just of an awareness piece. It's not steering them into an answer that you want to get out of them. I'd caveat that at the end.
Great. Okay, so then on to the last step, Stefan, the test completion report. So does this always happen?
This one is a bit of I almost didn't want to put it in here, but for completeness sake, I think it's important. I think for big projects, I think it's still relevant. And I think there are still people that would like this. But to be honest, it's something that I really haven't seen a lot. I've worked at corporates where it's an artifact that we've got the template, but nobody ever asked us for it. I think not a lot of people ask for it, but I think it depends on each company how important this is for them. I think it's worth doing it. I think it's almost in a way a bit of a retro document, almost saying this is the project, this is what we've done. And I think it's a good artifact to have if you ever were to tackle a similar project going forward. I think there should be findings or lessons learned in a way in such a document. There's quite a few things that you can put in there, but I think there is a place for it. For smaller projects, I probably would say not necessarily required, but for big complex projects, I think there is a place for it. Without having spending days on an artifact, and obviously there needs to be a balance between these kinds of documents. But yeah, I don't know if you guys have seen this in big projects that works in the agile methodology.
Some projects, though, where there's an auditing requirement and you know that you're in the industry where there are regular audits, absolutely. So this becomes an important artifact, but then you are doing it for a specific reason and purpose. And then I'm not against it. If it is, like you said, Stefan, there's a template somewhere and tell me everything that has happened and 300 test cases and so on, No one will ever read it. But if there is a auto requirement, sure, absolutely. And I've seen that quite a bit. We know that that's one of the quality gates that will be audited. And then for courses, then I don't mind it. But in normal Scrum, in normal projects where that requirement isn't there, I don't see people spending a lot of time on this.
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same. When there's been a governance requirement or a regulatory requirement to produce it, we've produced it. I think the only time I would advocate it outside of that would be if you're in a problematic team where testing isn't valued to the same extent that you wish it was, quality wasn't valued. It's your last opportunity to articulate a risk, and it's your last opportunity to delineate ownership of that risk to somebody else. Because what it could do for you is, let's say something happens in life and the question gets raised of why wasn't this captured in testing, is you have a document that's clearly, and this may be already on your board, so maybe it's you duplicating effort, but you can say, well, I issued the report, and in the report I flagged these 3 problems, I articulated into the business, and the business decided to downgrade them to a lesser priority. So I've done everything I can, and I've got evidence that I've done that. Hopefully you're in an environment or a team that's not combative and it's not accusatory in its culture, but it does happen. So it isn't sometimes can be used as something to kind of just not defend yourself is the wrong word, but just to kind of dot the I's is kind of what I would say about that.
Okay, excellent. I think let's wrap that up there. But if I can find a common strand through everything that we've discussed over the 3 sessions, I would say the message that I'd like everyone to take away is to try and create a culture where you are not the sole tester doing testing and having responsibility for the testing. Really try and create a culture where, and we've said it so many times, I know we're sounding like a broken record, but quality is the responsibility of the entire team. And the sooner you can get into that position where everyone is taking accountability for what's getting produced and contributing to the testing, I think you'll be in a better place for it. I don't know, do any of you want to have any closing remarks, or do you have any closing thoughts on this, on anything that we've discussed over the 3 sessions?
No, I think you summed it up quite nicely, Leon. I think there are things that we've highlighted that we will discuss in subsequent sessions, but I think as a summary, that's perfect.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much for joining us. If you haven't watched the first 2, please, if you can watch that. It does make sense to watch them 1, 2, and 3 because we did start with the leftmost information in terms of the start of the project, and we finished now with the end. So yeah, thank you very much for tuning in, and until next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
This has been an episode of Testing Experts with Opinions, an inspired testing podcast.